Yeah, dude, it is. And it's fun. It's like, when I was on with David, I had him on. It's like, it just gets those juices flowing and makes me realize, damn, I really do love doing this.
Mhm.
And I need to put a little bit of more focus on it, because it's like you say, it's just the people that you meet, the relationships you start to build, and the friendships that come out of a lot of them. It's just, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's a legacy. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a friend of mine that he mentored me. I was doing life insurance for a little bit, and he was like a mentor to me. And it was like for a year or two after I got out of prison. I knew him before I went to prison the first time, so he's coached me on a lot of stuff, and he's taught me how to deal with people. And it's funny because what I just told you about recording so your kids can document something he taught me. Um,
Okay.
and he just passed away recently, like in October. And it's crazy
Oh,
how
man.
I just think about how many lives that he's helped.
Yeah.
It's and how many like sales, and this is just like business, but he has impacted me. He's impacted the guy who works for me, who's my salesman. There's so many people that he's actually taken his knowledge and gave it to them, and to me, that's how his legacy lives on.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just kind of what I feel now is I'm trying to do is pass on this life of perspective and finding your real happiness and your identity, and understanding that that's, I think every time people are living their life now is they're looking for their identity.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and I was in high school. I found my identity in drugs. I told myself, man, I'm going to be a drug addict for the rest of my life. That was I would tell myself I'm going to die a drug addict. That's what I'm going to do for us. And I believed it as much as I believe the fact that like this is a microphone in front of me. It was, and I was okay with it. That was the scary part.
Yeah, that
I was
is
like,
crazy.
this is life. But
Yeah.
that's perspective. It's just how I was so stuck.
Well, you're talking about a lot of good stuff, so let's get the show on the road.
Yeah, man.
Folks,
Absolutely.
welcome back to the show today. We've got a special guest by the man by the name of Joseph Kajy. And did I pronounce that right? Your last name,
You
Joseph?
nailed it, man. You nailed it.
All right. And he's got a heck of a story. He's been to prison. He had addiction problems. He's now a successful entrepreneur. So I figured, there's nobody better than a man like Joseph with the background he's got to come on here, share his story that can help inspire others and let you realize that no matter what position you are in your life, no matter where you're at, whatever doubts you have in yourself, that you can do it. You can come back. There's nothing that's stopping you other than yourself and the thoughts that you've got. And so hopefully with what Joseph's here to share today, it'll help you break loose some of those thoughts and realize that, hey, there's nothing stopping you but yourself, and you can accomplish anything that you choose to. So welcome to the show today, Joseph.
Man, I appreciate it, man. You nailed it. That was on point, Steve. I think that's kind of a little bit of my story. It was just realizing that I felt like I can't get any better. I felt like this is who I was. And we talked about this kind of before the recording. I was the victim. I played the victim card so much, man. It was woe is me. And I stayed stuck. I never moved. From the
Yep.
age of 14 to 25. I think the only thing that changed from there was the number of my age, but I always acted like a 14-year-old victim, and that
Wow.
never
Yeah.
changed for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that, you know, I wouldn't say it's normal, but I think the masses, it's easy to fall into that, for whatever reason. It can be, because of the upbringing I had, because of this situation or this person did this. I was talking to someone this morning, and, this is something that I had to learn, and it was tough to own, but I've come to realize it's 100% true. And that is everything I have in my life to date, to this minute, is 100% based on choices I made, nobody else, and once you own that and take that kind of that extreme ownership, then it changes everything, because we can, based on the choices we make, that's what creates our future, that and things that we believe as well. But so you started using it like 14 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, man. So I moved from Detroit. That's where originally I was from. And I grew up there around family members. I grew up there. I played sports. So I was an athlete in basketball. I knew the coaches. So it was almost like I felt like the popular kid. And when I
Yeah.
was there, it was, hey, it was normal to drink, and that's what I was doing. I was drinking on the weekends, and like, this was at age 13, 14. For me, this was like
Wow.
kind of normal, like
Yeah.
this is not a big deal. Well, obviously I grew up, my they were born and raised in Iraq. They're called Chaldeans. They're Christian Iraqis. So we come from a very strict culture. I mean, my dad doesn't smoke, has never probably smoked a cigarette in his life, and the same thing with my mom. And I mean, a lot of my relatives are very similar to that. I was the black sheep for sure. And my dad moved here just to kind of get away. And we had some family members here in Florida. So he made a business decision to move here. And I remember the moment when I was 14 years old and I came here. I was so angry at my dad for moving us here that I purposely did not want to enjoy life. It was so that, and this is where the victim started for me. It was like, I'm going to make sure. And I remember going to a football tryout, and I played football. I wasn't that great at it, but I enjoyed it. I liked it. And I went to a football tryout, and the coach told me I was going to make the team. I wasn't going to start, but I was going to make the team. And I saw my dad get excited about it, that like, oh, this is great. And I didn't go to the last tryout on purpose.
No kidding.
That's how angry,
despite him, just
out of spite. And when I moved here, I was looking for that crowd to fit in. I just came from up north. Sure. I'm down south, very different, culture. You know what I mean? The guys in high school at this point are going fishing, they're going hunting, they're driving their trucks, they're doing other stuff I didn't do.
Yeah.
So the first crowd that I fit in was the crowd who was skipping school, smoking pot. And that's when I started. I was like, and I love that rebellious nature. I felt like nobody could tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want. And that just took me down the path. I was introduced to opiates when I was almost just about to turn 16. And the first time I took an opiate, that was when I said to myself, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life until the day I die. And I was 100% okay with that. It was like, this is fine. This is my life. This is what I'll do. And I did it for a very long time.
Yeah. Wow. Were there times that, did you ever feel like, you came close to ODing or anything like that?
So there was moments and it wasn't overdoses. But there was moments where I would drink and use pills, and I was in car accidents. I remember myself, and at this point I was 17 years old, and I wanted to die. You can call it a suicidal attempt, or just driving reckless and saying,
was that just because you were just kind of really just miserable?
I didn't care. This was right before I went to prison my first time. I've actually done 2 different prison sentences. And towards the first prison sentence, towards the end, I hated my life. I didn't want to live. I never looked in a mirror. I mean, even saying that, I get goosebumps. I remember those feelings of just feeling like, what's the point of living anymore? I had no money. I was stealing. Every morning I woke up, all I thought about was, who can I rob and how can I get it? That was my life. And it was, and it was just, I would lose job after job and friend after friend, and I would steal from family members and best friends, and I had people tell me, dude, you should just kill yourself. I don't know why you're alive, because they were so angry at how much I hurt them. And I wanted to, I was at that place.
Yeah, that's the thing, that when we're in our addiction, that we don't get is the wreckage and the damage we're doing to everybody around us. I mean, it's terrible, and, as addicts, we are great manipulators, great liars, but we're the most selfish bastards on the planet too.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, you got up every morning, you're thinking about, what you can steal, what you can, whatever, so that you can go get what you need to get high, basically. And, once you're taking opiates for a certain amount of time, you're not really getting that high anymore. You're just getting by it so that you don't feel like shit, basically.
Yeah. It was a maintenance.
Yeah. And it's a crazy thing. But so if anyone out there is listening and you're in the middle of this, don't buy all that negative bullshit that you're telling yourself, because, Joseph and I can attest the fact that there's no doubt your brain chemistry is all messed up now anyway. And so what you think you believe, I guarantee, is not actually what you believe. Maybe you've been through situation experience that, influence some of your beliefs for sure, because that's really where they come from, is just our experience and things we hear and what we're exposed to. But what had you then? So, you were on opiates. How long did that last? And then what was it that caused you to go to prison the first time?
Yeah. So first prison sentence, it was to the point that I was robbing and stealing, and it caught up with me.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. And this is what I say about, I've heard this said before, and it's so true to my life, that I have the perspective I have today because of things that I've been through. And I want to say that because you were just talking to people who are hopefully listening to this, and they're stuck there. And they almost feel like there is no way out. What good am I going to be able to do? And they get so stuck in that rut. But there's some things, if you can overcome, that you can help so many people because of it. So it's why I have the perspective I have today. My family lived in a community that you could almost call it like a gated community. And I was robbing people at the time, and the police had set me up. You know, that they knew I was posting stuff on Craigslist at the time, so people could meet me and I could steal their money. That's what I was doing.
Wow.
And I was so smart that I was so dumb. You know, I was
Exactly.
just so lost. I didn't care. I honestly didn't. This was the point I told you I didn't care about living. So I almost didn't care about getting caught. It was like, I'll figure that out when it happens. I didn't care.
Yep.
And so they set me up, and it was kind of it was almost intense. I felt like it was too intense for what they thought it was. So they thought I was doing like 40, every burglary that happened in the area that I lived in, they associated myself with all those burglaries.
Wow.
Which it was not.
Yeah.
But at the time when they arrested me, they thought there was guys who were robbing people at gunpoint, which was not me. So when they did come to arrest me, it was federal agents that had like vests on.
Oh yeah.
Undercover cars parked in front of my house, to the point that when they arrested me, I thought they had the wrong guy, because it was just
such so over the top, it seemed like.
So I was out front. I was near my home. I told somebody I was going to meet them in this little community center. And that's when they came and they arrested me. They handcuffed me, my hands to my feet, and they walked me to my door. Now I'm in this community that, and I remember I opened the door when the police knocked on the door, and it was my mom's face. I'm getting chills again, and watching the look on my mother's face to look at her son, who she didn't raise to be this way. You know, my mom is probably somebody, I don't think there's no other mother in this world that would have tried so hard to keep her son away from trouble.
Yep.
And she's staring at her son in handcuffs, you know, with a bunch of police officers in front of her home. And I went, at that time, I ended up going to prison for 2 years.
Wow.
I went to prison it was actually a 24-month sentence. You know, I got out with good time at 18 months. So I ended up doing 18 months at that time.
So did it end up being state or federal time?
It was state time. They ended up realizing, like, they ended up charging me when I first got arrested on like a bunch of charges. But then, of course, my parents ended up hiring a lawyer at the time, and they realized, look, half of this stuff doesn't even match the identity of Joseph. So they only got me for actually what I did.
Gotcha. So they thought it was a much bigger situation.
They thought it was a much bigger situation than what it was.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you go to prison for a couple of years. Did you have any, I mean, what did you go through in there as far as did any of your thoughts start to change, you know, or did you just kind of get through the time and then come out and fall back into some of the old habits?
Yeah. So that was actually an interesting time in my life when I turned in, because I didn't think I was a drug addict when I went in. To be honest with you, I was just like, I partied too hard and I need to stop.
Yeah.
And I met this one guy who was an older guy at the time. He was about 55 years old, and his name was Doug. And we always kept in touch. And this was a guy who was in there for DUI. And I'm a Christian. So he saw that I would carry around my Bible, and he kind of took me under his wing, because I was very different than a lot of people that sometimes go into prison. You know, I wasn't running around acting crazy. I was just kind of trying to do my time and stay to myself. And he liked that. Yeah. And he took me on as like a mentor. Like I look at him as like one of my first mentors in my life. And he first introduced me to Christ. You know, that's who I call my higher power. And we would walk the prison yard, and I'll never forget, he would tell me, Joseph, you know, this is not the life we have to live. You don't have to go back out and do drugs. And he would kind of mentor me, and I believed in it, what he was telling me, but I didn't understand how serious it was for my life, if that makes sense. Yeah. It was just kind of like, okay, stop drinking and stop doing drugs.
Right.
But I didn't understand that if I were to start using, it would cause that cycle again. I never understood that. I was oblivious.
You left off. Yep.
And that's what happened. So I ended up getting out. I got myself involved in a church and stuff, and just said, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to go to college. And I got out 2 days before my 21st birthday. So I ended up enrolling in school and I didn't party like crazy for my 21st birthday. I went out and just kind of tried to relax, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want to go crazy.
Right.
And then it happened. I went out one Saturday night. I went out to a club. I had one of the first drinks that I had. And from that moment, it was, let's go get cocaine. That's what my brain tells me.
Wow.
Let's go do this. Let's go do that. It's almost like I can't control the thoughts at that point. And people have asked me like, man, how did it get to that? And I always say I felt almost like powerless at that moment.
Yep.
I remember the first time I actually went to go pick up opiates, which I was so scared of. And I remember leaving the drug dealer's house thinking, what am I doing? Like, how did I get here? Almost feeling robotic, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
At that point, I was okay. I would tell myself lies. I'm just going to do this today, and I won't do it tomorrow. And that led on to, I ended up dropping out of school because of drugs after a month. And I was back at it again within 3 months, and it got worse. They say the disease progresses. Oh, yeah. It got worse.
Yeah. And
I was back again to stealing. I was back again to car hopping. I mean, anything I could get my hands onto. I ended up
just to get funds to feed your habit, basically.
That's what it was.
Yep.
That's what it was. It was just to get drugs, just to get money to feed my habit. That's why I would steal. Yep. It wasn't so I can go buy shoes, or it was because I had a drug problem.
That's right.
And I never knew that. It's why I'm very passionate now about kind of going into the prison industry and possibly doing some ministry work there, because when I was there, so I'll kind of fast forward real briefly to going back the second time. I end up start stealing again. And this is my first introduction to treatment. That's why I feel it's an important part of my story. I stole from somebody that I worked with. The guy that I told you was a mentor of mine. I worked for him before I went to prison. I stole from him.
Oh, wow.
He came to my house and said, hey, look, I found out you stole. What's going on? And that's when I just kind of told him, I said, look, I'm on drugs. He didn't have no idea what to do. So long story short, it caused a lot of chaos in the work environment that he owned an office. His wife told him, look, you need to press charges here. Like, I know you're trying to be the nice guy to Joseph, but like, he put everybody at risk, almost got people fired. I wasn't manipulated. I didn't care. I tried to frame a guy who had a wife and kids to get him fired. I mean, I had no heart. All I cared about was protecting myself. And it's a dark place. But I will tell you this, if it wasn't for that dark place, that I know how it is to live in that dark place, I would not like this place that I'm in now, to where all I want to do is help, because that's what I was chasing when I was on drugs. I was chasing this feeling of helping other people, that feeling of feeling significant. That's the feeling I get today when I sit in front of another person who says, hey, brother, I don't know how to stay sober, and I can actually help them. It's because I was in that dark path, so I went to prison the second time, man. And, but I will say when he ended up doing that, I know I'm kind of hopping a little all over the place.
No, you're fine.
So when he did end up pressing charges, I had to tell my parents about it.
Yeah.
Of course, they were my rescuers, and that's all they knew. You can call them enablers, but they looked at it like we're rescuing him. My lawyer at the time said, Joseph, you should go to treatment because it will look good for the case. That's the only reason I went to treatment then.
Yeah.
But I had to share that because that was the first time I saw people that this is actually something. Like, I didn't know about AA. I didn't know about recovery. I just thought like, there's people that go to some meetings to quit drinking, but I'm never going to quit drinking or using, and I faked it the whole time I was there. That's the truth. But the one reason why I mentioned that part of my story is because I remember watching a group of guys that were there because they wanted to stay sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was the fellowship of the brotherhood that I saw in them that I was like, this is really cool, man. And I wanted that.
It's something that you don't find many places, man. It is. It's incredible.
No.
Real quick, just to kind of hit on what you were talking about. But, I went through the same thoughts. I didn't know a way out. I didn't know any of that stuff, when I was in my addiction. But the one thing that, you were missing something. You were missing that feeling of belonging, that feeling of making a difference, like you said, being important. And I think people need to understand that we all use, whether it's drugs, whether it's food, whether it's over exercising, whether it's sex, whatever it is, because there's something missing and we're trying to fill that void. And so until you can really dig in and figure out what that void is, it's going to make it that much harder to stop whatever addiction you got. And until I figured that out, and I didn't figure it, really didn't figure that out for me till I was in prison. So you end up back in prison. And how long was that stay?
That was for 3 years.
Okay, 3 years.
Yep, that was for 3 years.
What was the charge? What got you sent back?
So I have 39 charges on my record. All because the first time I went to prison, I would pawn stuff. So they give you like false identity. There's like 4 charges for every time you stole. And then I ended up going on probation the second time. So I violated probation. They ended up putting me on probation when I went to treatment when he pressed charges. So they didn't send me to prison then, but I violated because I was still getting high and using. And then they brought all those charges back up with the new charges of stealing again. All my charges are stealing, are burglaries, stealing of stolen property. So at this time I'm facing 19 felonies. And they gave me, it's kind of an amazing God story, but I ended up just getting 3 years. I say only 3 years,
right?
But like I was thinking, I'm going for 7. I'm going for 2.
10, yeah, whatever. That's
long story short. They should have came up with the numbers. They're supposed to score you based on all the probation numbers you were on. Somebody made a mistake in the prosecutor's office when they gave me the offer and I signed it. The judge recognized the mistake when we accepted the offer and looked at me and said, if I see you again, you'll never come out of here, because he understood. And I mean, I signed the paper. I never forget that moment of him recognizing the fact that, hold on a second, we have 12 charges. How come he only scores out to this many points? The state looked at the paper, looked at the paper and realized it. Come to find out, that was I was the second case it was a prosecutor that was going against my case. I was only a second case. He made a mistake. He didn't score the other points when he.
Wow.
So I took that was the first offer they offered me when I was in jail. I got arrested in November. I took the offer in the second week of December. It was the first offer on the table. And if anybody knows about jail, you never take the first offer, but
no doubt.
They gave me 3 years, 2 years probation.
Wow.
So, and it's crazy because at the time, and that's perspective, right? I mean, I thought I'm going to get 7. And some people were like, oh my God, you went for 3. But because I thought I was going to get 7, I got 3. I was so excited about it. I was like, wow.
Right. Yeah.
So you would think that's where I said I'm done. But if anybody knows, there's more drugs in prison than there is.
Oh yeah, you can get anything.
Yeah. So anyways, I didn't stay sober. They sent me to a work release program, which a work release program is like the last year of your sentence. You get to actually stay at like a halfway house. If you don't get in any trouble, you get to go home with some money in your pocket and a job. I was still using when they sent me to the work release program. 4 months left of my sentence. I ended up getting sent back, not because of drugs, but I was carrying extra money on me. And if you violate, they send you back. And this is the moment that changed for my life, when they sent me back again. At the time, I was so good at lying that my whole family didn't know. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
For me, my life was, as long as you thought I was doing okay, I'm okay.
That's right.
That's why I don't like being fake. That's why I'm always like, hey, I'm very honest. Don't hide. Don't worry about what other people think, because I know what it's like to live that fake life. It's like depressing, because nobody knows who you are anymore.
Yeah, you don't even know who you are.
I don't know who I was. Exactly. And as crazy as it sounds, there was times that I was acting like I was sober, and I probably was for like 30 days, because in between that rehab time when I was on probation, I was like faking it in AA and the program.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know how long I ever really truly stayed sober, because I would pick up 60 days and I don't know. I think maybe it was 2 weeks. So they sent me back, and I was in a 10 by 10 cell, and usually when they send you back, there was another inmate that was there. Well, in prison, and I know in Florida, if this is your first time you go to prison, your first letter is a 0. The second time you go to prison, it's an A. And then the third time is a B, and so on and so forth. This guy's got a K letter, and I have an A letter at the time. And he looks at me. He's like, oh, man, you're well on your way to be just like me.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what it was. I honestly think that was the first time in my life I said, if I don't change, this is my life. This is it. And at that moment, I was like, I have to change. I didn't know how. I was truly scared. The only thing I knew how at that point was to honestly get on my knees and just pray. That's all I knew. I got on my knees, and I'll never forget. Every time I tell this story, it gets me emotional again. I cried probably more than I've ever cried in my whole entire life.
Yeah, I know that.
That gives me good. I just remember that moment, man. And I was so scared because I remember my prayer was just, it was like a pouring out, but the basis of my prayer to God was, I want to stay sober. I never want to use again, but I feel like if you let me out today, I'm going to get high, and I don't know how to stop this. Like that was my thought. I didn't know how to stop this thing that happened in my mind. Today, I understand how to stop it in my mind, but at the moment, it was like a powerful hold that had on me that I thought I could never overcome, to the point that I was scared to go back on the prison compound because I knew there's probably going to be stuff there, and I didn't want to get out.
Yeah.
I was scared. And my sobriety date is January 24th, 2017. That's the day they sent me back. That's the day I sat in that cell. They let me out of that cell. The first person that came up to me that knew me, I just looked at them, and I think they thought like I was maybe like a snitch or something. I don't know what happened, but nobody wanted to talk to me after I said, I was like, hey, look, I don't touch anything anymore. I want to smoke no cigarettes.
Yeah, that was just totally different. Yeah.
Totally different. They knew me as like,
yeah,
they knew me as the guy who was always getting crazy. But nobody came up to me. All the guys who were doing the crazy stuff, they honestly like stayed away from me. And looking back at it, I'm like, I wonder if they thought like maybe I was like a snitch, but I don't know what it was. It was God that just, so I sat there and I worked out for 4 months, and I just read books. The one thing I knew though is when I came home, all I remembered was that time I went to treatment, that fellowship with those guys. You know, they were trying to get sober. And I remember when I was in AA and I was, on probation, even though I didn't want to do it, I was like, man, are these dudes real? Like, I thought everybody was lying in there, like, oh, you're sober. I'm like, dude, these guys are lying.
Right.
And I got out. The first day I got out, I hop on social media. I see one of these guys that I was in a halfway house with. Funny thing is, I actually stole from this guy in the half. I get kicked out of the half, and I stole from this guy.
Oh, wow.
He was like one of my close rehab friends, I guess you can call it. But I didn't know anybody else to reach out to, and I saw he was still sober, and I was like, and I didn't think he would have stayed sober when in the beginning. He, so I reached out to him, and I was trying to ask for forgiveness. I was like, man, I'm so sorry. And he stopped me. He said, hey, dude, shut up. Where are you? I says, I just came home from prison, man. He said, are you sober? I said, I am now, but I was crying to him. I'll never forget it. I said, dude, I'm scared, man. He said, well, I'm coming to pick you up. I'm taking you to a meeting.
What a blessing, man. Wow.
He came and picked me up. He brought me around a group of men. I remember my first guy that I just reached out to. I said, look, brother, I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. And I remember him just looking at me. He's like, you're home, brother. We were all there.
That's so cool.
And the part that I love about this part of my story that I feel could help anybody is there's always somebody that understands what you're going through. And I think when we're going through what we're going through, we always think nobody understands me.
That's right.
Nobody will get it. You don't know what I've been through. And that's the victim card we play.
Yep.
And when I finally got away from being the victim and just said, hey, look, I got to face this because it's life or death for me. I still say this today. There's guys I see, and you probably see it too. They relapse, they come back, they relapse. If I go back out, right, I'm gone. I'm dead or I'm in jail. There's no second chance, I don't believe, for me.
Yeah. Well, you had to, obviously you with what you went through, you had that humility to be honest, to be authentic and real, to tell them, a lot of us still get in our own way and let that pride, even though we may want to get sober, let that pride get in our way of, feeling weak and not a man by saying, hey, I'm scared. But that is way more powerful. You're way more of a man when you're willing to do that stuff than all this fake BS that we're taught, that is just, it's all garbage because it doesn't do anything to really serve you. All it is, stuff to continue to allow you to, fall into bad situations and continue to fight against what you truly want, So as you were, in prison and you said you knelt down and you just prayed, like, did you, what took place as far as what did you think? What did you feel, that maybe made that difference? I mean, because I just had something, when I went through a couple of things in my case, when my attorney told me I was playing when I never planned to. And then when I was in prison, 3 weeks in, I called home and my wife basically said, I don't have time to worry about you. And I just, so in those two situations, I ended up like praying, like you said, like, dude, I was a wreck. I mean, I had snot coming out of my nose. I'd never pled with the Lord like that in my entire life, and both times I instantly knew and had this peace come over me, like that I knew I had to plead, and that I knew my marriage would be fine, but my wife is in a worse place than me,
Right.
And anyway, so yeah, because you really humbled yourself and like you had a broken heart in a sense, I mean, and had that humility, did you feel like, because God's always there, but we don't always, approach him in a way that, we're really looking for that sincere help and paying attention to what's the work he's doing.
That's right. Yeah. For me, I want to say this was the biggest thing for me, I think, at that moment. The biggest thing for me at that moment was I feel like I let it all out. And that's what it was. It was all this stuff that I held on to. In my culture as being a man, you don't cry. Yep. You don't talk about your weaknesses. You don't hug nobody else and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this. We hide behind that stuff because we got to be a man. And, you got to be strong. And you got to, don't tell anybody what you're struggling with, because then they'll think you're weak, especially in prison. In prison, you can't talk. I remember my sister got married while I was in prison. And that was a tough thing for me because in our culture, our weddings are like a big deal. And I remember my sister telling me over the phone and I wanted to cry, and I'm trying to hold in not crying because you can't show tears, because that's when people will prey on you if they see your tears. They're like, he's weak now, let's go get him. And she's just telling me how she wishes I was there. I have never watched, till this day, I've never watched my sister's wedding video because it breaks my heart that I wasn't there for my sister, which is why today, every time she calls me, I pick up the phone and I'm there for her.
Absolutely. Which
is why now when my parents need me, no matter how busy I am, I'm there for them because they came to visit me. It's why I want to do what I do now. So back to your question, I might have got off topic and I apologize.
No, you're fine, man. Perfect.
In that moment, because of how I was raised and not being able to kind of let things out, I feel like that's more of what it was for me, of letting it out and giving it to God. That was the only person I knew. It was letting go and saying, God, please take this from me.
God, that's right.
So the weight was removed, but the fear was still there because I never understood what it meant to trust in God.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. I was they call it like a babe in Christ. I was still a baby. I was like, I understand I read his Bible and I understand that, he's there for me, but I never really understood how much I need to trust him and how much he actually really is there and how much he's paving I understand that now because of those moments, those moments that I didn't know what to do. And I was so scared. And I have a ton of them in my life that since then, where I was so scared, and I'm a problem solver. That's why I'm a business owner. And God always takes me to a place where, Joseph, you can't solve this problem. Look back to me. And I have to look back to him and say, God, I need you. And he reminds me that says, look, you don't always have to depend on your own will, your own fight, your own strength. Yeah. And that's when it started for me. So it was like I got the weight removed. And while I was, and after I know that 4 months, nobody came up to me to offer me anything. And then even when I got out, I didn't know this was God in the moment. I just thought this is like, oh, wow, this is great. And I looked back as I got closer to God and I started understanding really who my higher power, who Christ was in my life, how he aligned all that stuff for me. He put that guy, David, there for me to reach out to. He gave him a heart to forgive me, to not care about it. 100%. The awesome thing about recovery is I got to pay him back. And he's one of my best friends today. It's all these things that God did for me, but it all started because I had to let go. And that's what it did for me at that moment.
That's awesome. I mean, geez, yeah, because for those listening, that is the key right there, is just let go and let God, because, I remember, I grew up, Christian, I'm a Christian. I grew up in the Mormon faith, believe it or not. And I remember leaving rehab one night. It was the outpatient stuff. And on Thursday nights, family could come. And so my wife always came, and then my parents came most of the time. And one time after, leaving, we're in the parking lot walking to our cars. And, for some reason, my dad and I were talking and something about prayer, and I just remember telling him, well, he asked me, are you praying at all? And I said, no, like, he's not going to listen to me. I'll never forget my dad saying, he's always there to listen to you, no matter what, and it was that pride and that shame and guilt that made me believe that he wouldn't listen,
Yeah.
but that took me back to that, what is it? Kind of that image of footprints in the sand,
Yeah.
where we've got the footprints next to you, but no one's there. Well, that's Christ. He's always there, we just have to ask. And, that's so powerful because, when it comes to addiction and alcoholism, you're literally can't do it alone,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to let go and reach out and ask for help. And that's where pride gets in the way so often.
Yeah. And it's still, and that's the one thing that I think what happens with, and it's not even like you said, and I think it's with a lot of people is, we feel if we ask for help, it's weakness,
Right.
and I guess I should only speak for myself, but I do talk to, I'm seeing it more and more often. And that's why I love having conversations like this, or when you're reaching out to help somebody, because you start to see patterns in people and you're like, man, why is everybody so afraid to talk about what their weakness is? Like they're so afraid to say, I'm struggling here. I need help, because in this culture, for some reason, or in the culture maybe they live in, they think it's a weakness. You had to reach out for help. And it's like, that's a strength. You know what I mean? For you to be able to put your pride
100%.
aside and want to get better and say, hey, I'm struggling here. Can you help me? That's strength. Because guess what? You just grew. You grew to the next level. Now you're better. Maybe it's your recovery. Maybe it's your business, whatever it is. If we're not reaching out for help, that means we're not growing. I don't see how you're growing if you're not reaching, because we all struggle. I mean, I'm terrible. Right. Listen, I run a $3.5 million business and I suck at numbers. I'm terrible with money management. I'm horrible with it. I try to manage it myself. And then I realize, hold on a second. Why don't you reach out? Like I still have to remind myself, why are you not reaching out for help? And I finally reach out for help and I'm like, oh, that's great. Now I'm so much better because I was able to admit to somebody, hey, look, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me?
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into the last kind of topic I want to hit it on with you. So you struggle, you have addiction problems, you end up in prison, we've both been through that. And now we're successful entrepreneurs. So, people that are listening who maybe are still kind of fighting things and not sure what to do with their lives. And particularly even with these last couple of years, what's gone on, it's put people in a lot of bad situations. And so, as an entrepreneur, you actually can reclaim your life. You can take control of your life because it's up to you what you do and what you create. And so it's scary as hell, maybe for a lot of people. But once again, it all comes down to what you just said. If we try to go build something on our own and we've never done it, what's the chances that we're going to succeed? They're very low.
Right.
But if we're willing to ask and find a mentor and get help, your chances go up 10x at least, And as you mentioned, you suck at numbers. Well, there's certain things I suck at in my business. And that's where that reaching out and getting somebody that is good at that, that's the key, So, you have a $3.5 million business. I mean, that's not just some teeny little business, folks. How long have you had your business? 4 or 5 years in it?
This is year 4.
See, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. What had you had your own business prior to this business at all?
No, I actually haven't. My dad's owned a business his whole life. He owned a convenience store in Detroit for about 15 years. He came here and now he owns two dry cleaners right now. So my dad's always been an entrepreneur, business owner, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But no, I've never ran a business. I didn't have the experience, to be honest with you. It was just when I got out, I started working, and I started working for people. And I'm the type of person, I always look at something, I'm like, man, we can do this better.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can do this better. And some people don't want to do it. Like, not that they don't want to do it better, but like, I get it. Like, hey, don't tell us how to run our business. And I probably looking back, maybe I didn't approach things the right way, but I had this mindset like, man, there's always got to be a better way. And then I see a problem. I'm like, hey, this is why this problem is happening. And I'm always just trying to improve and help. When I was working for somebody, help them get to the next level.
Yeah.
And
like that are hard to find, and they're lucky. They're lucky to have someone like that.
Yeah. And so like the first job I actually had was like, it was a party rental company. They did tents and party tables and stuff. I worked there for a little bit. That's where I actually met my wife. who,
Oh,
we're
cool.
married to now. So that served its purpose. And I left there and worked at a fence company. I've never done fence work. I never had a drill, or I never did that work. But, coming out of prison, we were so much told that like your jobs are going to be limited. And, you got those limited beliefs that were in our minds so when I got that job opportunity to go work there, I said, let me just take it, because I don't think I will get another one.
Yeah. Well, that felony, we think, yep, that's right.
Right. We think, and let me tell you, like, some people, you're right. Maybe it is harder for you to get a job. And like, I think that's okay to have that conversation.
Yeah.
That some people are going to look at your application, and yes, you're right. Maybe some people will judge you, but that does not mean you can't. That does not mean, instead of just being a piece of paper, maybe go in, try something different than just, accepting that, oh, I couldn't get a job. And that's what I did. And I would always, the first job I had, I hated what I did. It was the environment was terrible. So I always listened to podcasts, and I always listened to positive stuff. And that's how I kind of kept moving. And I feel like that's what motivated me to move forward. So I got the other job at the fence company, and I did the same thing there. I was like, what level can I get to? What's the highest level? Yeah. And it was like being a leader of a truck, running your own crew. So I learned how to put up fence in like 3 months. And, the guy always told me, I'll give you a truck. You'll run a crew. And he kept passing me along. And I was okay if he didn't, but I was always say, don't tell me you will if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So
I found the opportunity where I came to him. I said, hey, look, it's not happening. And he looked at me and said, look, you're lucky I gave you a job. And that's exactly how I felt. And I was already having these feelings like, man, I'm working for other people's dream. That's how I always felt. Like, why am I building this guy? This guy's got a boat and he's traveling, and he calls me on Friday and forces me to come in on Saturday. Like this, I don't want to live this life. My wife was pregnant at the time. And I remember, I'll never forget this comment. I always tell her, she just got out of the shower. She was brushing her hair. I could tell you exactly what she was wearing. I said, babe, I want to go start my own fence company. And she goes, what? I said, yeah, I did a couple side jobs. I think I can do this. I'll go hang door hangers. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'll just go get another job. And that's what that sentence right there is, I think, what people need to tell themselves.
Yep.
If you go, everybody's so scared to start because they're afraid of failing. Well, if you fail, you can always go back to your job, but at least you tried. So that's what I did. I started at my fence company, and I didn't have a truck. I had a Camry. The materials would always get delivered to the job site. I would hang out door hangers on Sundays. And it was, and this is a part that when we're talking about entrepreneurship, it's hard. I think it's okay to know that it's hard. It's okay to know it's a challenge. I think people need to accept the fact they need to have a better relationship with failure if they want to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And that's what the conversation I'd love for people to hear. And I was like, it's okay. You're going to fail. You're going to mess up. And I think what happens is they think they're not supposed to fail. And when they fail, they think they're not good enough. And maybe I should never own my own business.
Yeah. And then they end up stopping. They end up giving up, and it doesn't come overnight. And that's the key, right, is continue to push,
And it's hard. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was days, and I can't tell you that every day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to. No, there was days that I'll never forget. I'm looking at a whiteboard and I had 4 customers I gave quotes to. And I'm like, I just need one of them to say yes so I can pay my rent. And yes, it was hard, but I just told myself, I don't want to work for somebody else. And if they can do it, why couldn't I? I would listen to positive stuff. I did anything I could to just keep going,
Yeah.
And every time I kept going, there was another win, and there was another, and I started piling on these wins. And all of a sudden, guess what happened? My self-confidence started getting up, I started saying, I can do this. And then the farther you go, the more you're like, hey, I'm here. I'm not quitting now. Right. So then it got to the point where putting up fence for a year and hired my first crew, and then hired my second crew, and then hired an assistant. And I say all that, it wasn't like a transition. I just transitioned that. No, it was all hard. It was scary for me,
Oh yeah.
But I just knew what I wanted. And I was like, I have to take this chance. I don't want to regret that I never tried. I don't want to regret that I never tried to get to that next level. And there was so many failures. Listen, last year was 2.5 million. This year we're on track to 3.5. So that's the clarity of where the 3 million is. And we messed up so much. There was so many crazy stuff that happened last year that I messed up. And that's the part we talked about earlier, is it's all on me. I can't blame anybody but me. I set the system up.
Yeah.
And now I'm able to look back at that system and say, this is where we need to fix it. And we've done that. We're making those changes and now we're moving. But entrepreneurship is it's like failure, fix it. That's how I look at it. Like,
It is
you're gonna mess up. Why'd you mess up? How do we not do it again? And let's keep moving. What happens with people, I feel, is they stay stuck. They're like, I messed up, and they cry about it and they whine about it. They blame everybody else instead of saying, why did I mess up? What could I have done differently? And hey, let's start doing that now. Let's go. Let's keep moving.
Bingo. Yeah. It's learning, because that's how you get better and better, is continue to learning, and messing up and failing doesn't mean you lose it all or anything like that necessarily can, but it's okay. What was I supposed to learn from that? Making the adjustments, implementing changes, and then also continue to evolve, always try to improve, even, when you don't have to mess up to continue to grow. Like you mentioned earlier, continue to grow and continue to learn and continue to, get coaches to help you and, in your life and your business, because, we're never, ever going to be in a place where we know it all, or, I say, you stop living and growing, you're going to start dying,
Yeah.
And I've seen it, with people. My dad retired, and then he really didn't have a lot that kept him really occupied and busy. And I can see how that, I personally believe, it affected his health, and that's why it deteriorated, especially mentally. It's like, you got to have something to do, something to continue to stimulate that brain. But man, that's a heck of a story. I mean, you're 4 years into business and already, projected at 3.5 million this year. That's a hell of a accomplishment. And I have a feeling, based on just the little bit we've talked about today, that you're still just barely getting started.
Yeah, we are, man. And like, it's a God thing, man. It's crazy, because like when you go through what you go through and God gets you out of it, it's almost like I have nothing to be scared of anymore. Like that's honestly just what I feel. It's like I take a step and I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to pray. And then I'm going to say, where do you want me next? I'm going to pray and say, where do you want me next? And that's just what it is. It's I pray and I take action. I pray and I take action, but I'm never just dwelling. It's I got to keep moving. You got to keep taking action and realize you messed up, realize you failed, and keep going. It's not, and I didn't do this alone. I got a network of people around me that's helping me mess up and helping me through my failures. But it's beginning with the end in mind. And I remember there was a book I read, and it was a Stephen Covey book. Yeah. And that changed my life too, where it was like, what do I want people to say about me when I die? And that's what I should focus on. It's not like I want people to say he was rich and had a bunch of money. Like, yes, wealth is great. What you can do with it is great. I'm still trying to make more money. Don't get me wrong. But I want people to say Joseph impacted me. I want my kids to say he was a great father and he spent time with me. So I built my business to make sure I could spend time with my kids. So my life is literally designed, and I try to focus on, what do I want people to say about me when I die? That's the legacy that I want to leave. I could be making a lot more money than I'm making right now, to be honest with you, but my team makes great money too. The guys who are on my team, they make great money. They work for me. It's a great environment. And I'm okay with that, because I want my team to say, Joseph always took care of me, and we love the team. And I can go on vacation for 2 weeks and know they're going to take care of it.
That's one of the lessons my grandpa taught me. He was one of my mentors when I was running my dad's car wash and convenience store. And that's what he taught me, is take care of your people. And I've implemented that in every business. And that, to me, is just as important as every customer you have. You have to do that. And too often, people try to take advantage, and they're, without your people, you are nothing in your business. You have nothing without your people. No. It's one of the most, that's one of your biggest assets, so take care of them, like you said. And that's because it's not always about money. And if you take care of them, like you said, they're going to respect you. They're going to do the right thing. So you don't have to worry when you're out of town. You don't have to be answering phone calls. It's
fun.
Exactly.
It's fun to win with people. You know what I mean?
To see them get all jazzed up because of the way that you're taking care of them,
That's the fulfillment. It's like, what good is it if I'm rich and I'm alone, And I think that conversation, sometimes it's like a two-sided coin. Like, people think, oh, well, can I be happy and rich? Like, I'm not saying you can't.
Right.
But some people are just so focused on getting rich that they fail to realize what was the cost of it,
Exactly.
Was it the cost of you spending time with your kids? Was it the cost of you? And are you okay with that? If you are, that's fine. but just be self-aware to why you're chasing what you're chasing, instead of just chasing it because it sounds like the right thing to do right now.
That's probably one of the most important things that we've talked about, in my opinion, just based on my experience in life, seeing how I operated at times. I was incredibly busy, incredibly driven, all about, my companies and money, frankly. And I wasn't present, when I was still doing things with my family, and still coaching my boys and things. But if you're not present, what's the point? So yeah, if you get too caught up in one thing that you're neglecting the other things, you've got holes in your boat, you're going to sink those other areas of your life, which ultimately is going to affect your happiness, no doubt, and relationships. And then you're going to go through divorces most likely. And, you only can grow the things that you're willing to nurture. And you've got to nurture every area of your life. It's not just all about business.
Well, it's self-awareness, and that's the biggest part that I feel is everybody's trying to be somebody instead of just being themselves and who they want to be. It doesn't, you don't have to be, there is no, that's why I always hear people say about this formula of success. And I don't know what the formula is. I know what my formula is. You know what I mean?
Really what matters.
Yeah. Success is different for everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I can't take your formula and say, that's what I want to do, as long as I'm self-aware to understand. My business, I built it. Yes, I could make more money, but I built it on purpose the way it is because, my dad worked his whole life. My dad's a great father. Nothing's wrong with what he did, but my dad didn't come to my basketball games, and I remember those things. And that's where I played the victim stuff. And I'm older and I respect my dad and I love him for that. But for me, in my mind, I think I can do both. I can give my kids a great life and I can be there. I mean, I don't even work on the weekends. I'm home every day at 5:00. I know I can go out and grind and work harder. I know I could. I can, from 5 to 7, I could go make more money. I could work on, but I enjoy taking my son to the soccer game on Saturday. I have fun, and that's okay. That's where I think those conversations I love, because I feel like everybody thinks there's this formula to happiness, but you have to understand what makes you happy. Because you can make $100,000 and be happy and miss your kid's soccer game, or make $40,000 and be happier and go to every soccer game you want. Both are okay.
So true. Yep.
Both are fine,
And the only way that you're going to, be able to create that is by being intentional like you were, and you set it up the way you wanted to. And that's the way you have to do it. Otherwise, what'll happen is whatever happens. If you're just focused on work and think that you got to just focus on that, then that's going to continue to just control you. And you're going to have you're really not having any say in what you're doing other than trying to build a successful business. And most people I know like that, they're not happy, frankly, they're miserable. And most of them have regrets, that have been that way and realize it, willing to own it. But, well, Joseph, I'm going to give you the last word. What is the last thing you want to leave? And then after that, tell people where they can find you. And I'll, of course, have your information in the show notes as well. So,
absolutely. Man, as of right now, currently in my life, man, I feel like the most important thing is I want people to start sharing their stories. I want people to understand that whatever it is you've been through and you're hiding behind, and I shared this in one of my podcasts, and it's so true. And I'm going to use it again because my wife gave me permission. It's when we think like what we're going through and we're trying to paint this perfect life, it's almost like a sadness. Like we feel like we don't want to show these weaknesses. We don't want to help people. We don't want to. And I think truly in our hearts, everybody has this feeling in their heart that when we do help somebody, it's almost like that light starts to shine. Every time you're giving value to somebody else, there's this spark in you. There's this light in you that starts to shine. And we're always trying to put a fake light on. We're always trying to mask who we really are because we're afraid that who we are is not good enough, and what we've been through can't help anybody. And I know most people listening to this, they're either struggling with addiction or they've gone through addiction. To the ones who are struggling with addiction, there's hope. I know it seems so hopeless and it seems so dark because you think that I can never get out of this. But if you think you'll never get out of it, you won't. But if you reach a hand out, I give my personal number out. And I'll give it to you so you can put it on there. There's people you can reach out to and get you out and live the life that you've ever wanted to live. You don't have to stay stuck. There's a way out and there's hope. And for the ones who overcame, I want them to start sharing their stories, man. I think there's so many stories that people are afraid to share and talk about because they're afraid to get judged. But there's so many people that can be helped. They want to relate to you. You can help people I can't. You know what I mean? Because you have stuff that you've been through. So that's it, man. It's just, I always say, if you hide your story, you hide God's glory. You know?
Oh, that's a great line. I love that. That's been my experience 100% is when you're real and authentic and talking your truth and your story, that's when you have impact, because when people see that, they realize they're not alone, you know, and by us hiding behind facades, we're not doing humanity any good. And so I love that line, and everybody needs to just share their truth and their story, because it resonates, and it helps other people realize that, hey man, someone else has already been through this, you know, and there is hope, and you know, maybe I can reach out and get some help. So, and I appreciate you being here, and I know you're busy, so I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and look forward to staying in touch and, you know, having you back sometime.
Yeah, Steve, man, it was an honor to be here. Thanks for having me on here. Hopefully, you know, I brought value to you and your listeners, you know, and again, man, thanks for having me on here.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, man. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right, we'll talk soon.